Okay, gotta get it set on a Lord of the Rings picture, right? Hey everybody, this is Travis. We interrupt Evergreen Month with a special announcement. It was spoiled by the thumbnail to the video, but I'm still excited about it. T-Pole's Corner has been accepted into the early access event of Magic the Gathering's release of Lord of the Rings. So we're going to be playing some Lord of the Rings on, I think it's Thursday, June 15th is the right date. And I'm going to upload as much as I can, as fast as I can of my gameplay. So what I'm going to do, instead of doing gameplay tonight, I'm going to go over my plans for the early access event real quick. I'm going to talk about the Universes Beyond little arrangement that Magic the Gathering has. I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of the game and how it relates to the historical timeline involving Lord of the Rings and Dungeons and Dragons. So buckle in for just a few minutes. We won't take up much of your time here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to have an account. I'm going to log in. I'm going to play alongside and against your other famous Twitch stars, your streaming stars, and your fellow Magic the Gathering YouTube content creators. And it should be a lot of fun. And I think the biggest problem for me is I'm going to have to remember that if I'm about to die, that I shouldn't concede, that I should play the game to the end so that everybody has maximum visuals of seeing what the gameplay is like with these new cards. Every now and then, I think just on Arena, if you're trying to get your 15 wins in for the night, if it looks hopeless, you get used to conceding. And so I've just got to make sure that hasn't turned into muscle memory and that I don't automatically start conceding all the time if I start getting my butt kicked. But my plans are basically I'm going to do the best of one. You can do drafts, but I think for the different versions of drafts, it's not my forte. There are some people that are really good in timed draft, right, against other players. This is a brand new set. I haven't memorized all the cards yet. And it's a little bit different from like the Secret Lair from Walking Dead. It's not just a handful of cards. This is a whole set. I think they said 180 cards. Was it 180? There's a lot of cards. It's an entire set. So a little bit different than before. And so I could do a quick draft because there you're up against the AI and there's no timer that is pressuring you. I think it would be tough for me in that timed environment with a brand new set to really pick the best cards. I'm still learning how to improve my draft skills. But if you want to see me do a quick draft, leave a note in the comments to this video and I'll do one. I'm also toying around with the idea of doing some YouTube Live for the day because I haven't done YouTube Live before. So if you'd like to see that, let me know as well. Otherwise, what I'm basically going to be doing is I'm going to be making as many decks as I can featuring these new cards, figuring out how they work with each other, and showing you some nice gameplay for a while. And I'll basically I'll upload a series of rounds using that particular deck, and then I'll go in and I'll create a different deck and make a different video. And I will probably have stuff up that day. I will probably have stuff up the 2 or 3 days in a row just because it seems to take forever to upload videos to YouTube. So I will release them as quickly as my uploading allows. But we're going to show off these cards and hopefully y'all are going to have some fun watching it and learning about these things. So that's my plan. Again, list in the comment if you'd like to see a particular thing. This is my first early access event. So I'm brand new to it. And if I do take customer requests, so to speak, and you guys are getting a bit of a treat because I'm a little hidden, right? I've only been doing this a couple of years. So I'm not necessarily a big player in the content creation universe here on YouTube. I'm kind of a small niche because I've sort of set myself up as counter-programming. I don't play the mythic rank stuff with the latest and greatest usually. So this is going to be a really different treat for me because usually I've got, artificial constraints where I don't let myself spend wild cards and I don't have, 4 copies of every mythic rare, and I'm making do with, extra limited resources in terms of deck construction and that kind of thing. And for this early access event, I'm going to basically be able to go into the set and make anything that I want. So it'll be interesting to see what I can do when I'm completely unleashed and have unlimited resources. I'll try not to let it go to my head. But we'll see if that leads to better decks at all, or if it leads to better gameplay, or if I misplay as much as I always do, that kind of thing. So that's my plan for the early access event. For the way things are going to go for the schedule, I think June 16th is the pre-release. Then on Arena, they're going to release it on June 20th. And then there'll be a tabletop release on June 23rd. Okay. and they're putting out a lot of effort on this. Wizards of the Coast is. They've even taken a massive battle, the Battle of Pelennor Fields, and they have sort of split it up into 18 individual cards, and you put the cards together to make the battle visage, right? The entire picture. It was all illustrated by one guy, Tyler Jacobson, who's a very, very gifted artist. They've actually had a bit of a controversy already because there was a miscommunication on making up the artwork, and they switched out a character with the wrong character on one of the cards. But I think it's a variant card, so it'll be interesting to see if, I think they found the mistake too late. The cards had already been printed, so maybe that'll become just this misprint that becomes very valuable. And if you haven't been watching any of the news or paying attention to Magic's site, we'll just tell you some of the stuff here that they've done. They've released a serialized One Ring card that there's only one copy of it. And I think somebody's already offered, before the boxes even came out, it's going to be out in boxes, and you can, take your chance and buy a particular kind of box and see if you get the card. But I guess they just made one copy of that one card, and people are already offering $1 million for it before they even find out who gets it. So they're doing stuff like that. For content, if you like the paper product and you're still playing tabletop Magic, I'm not right now because my kid lost interest real quick. He's fickle that way. So I'm not buying any cards right now for physical over-the-top tabletop play. But we're just sticking to Arena for now. But if you do like the physical product, they're basically doing a good marketing spree. They're going to do this release in June, and they're going to do another one for the holidays that starts in November before Christmas season hits. And that's probably a good marketing strategy, right? But if you want to buy, they'll have 16-card draft boosters. They're going to have collector boosters, set boosters, jumpstart boosters. They're going to have 4 different commander decks. They'll have a starter kit this time. They'll have what they call scene boxes. It is just basically whatever you want to get in terms of what you prefer to buy when you play Magic the Gathering. You're going to have an option to get it. It's going to be pretty cool. What else do we want to say about it? I think we would just say for the people that are only interested in Arena, it's not going to Standard because it's a Universes Beyond property, right? So it's going to be going straight to Modern, which for us on Arena means you play it in Alchemy and Historic. And I kind of like Alchemy. I think they botched the rollout, and I've got a whole video talking about how to save Alchemy and make it better for us. But I don't mind playing in Alchemy if I get to play with Lord of the Rings cards. So it's going to be fun. To talk about why this isn't going to Standard, it's because it's part of their Universes Beyond series. And what that means is Wizards of the Coast goes to another company and they set up an agreement and they basically license the intellectual property and say, hey, we're going to take your stuff and we're going to turn it into Magic cards. And so they did this for Walking Dead, and it was just a small number of cards. And I'm a fan of Walking Dead. I've got all the trade paperbacks. I got the original comic story. I've watched the TV series. I'm watching the spin-offs. Even if some of the episodes seem kind of slow, I'm still into it. I wouldn't call myself a super fan, but I'm a fan. So I don't mind the crossover of the two forms of intellectual property with Walking Dead coming into the game. Some people seem to be upset. And I think the level of upsetness might depend on your familiarity or how much you like that particular intellectual property. They had another one with Transformers, which seems oddly futuristic, but I grew up with Transformers. I liked Transformers as a kid. The way that the deck sleeves appear on Arena is really cool. But I'm not seeing Transformers interfere with my gameplay in Arena at all. I don't know if people are getting upset that somebody comes with some Transformer cards over for the game night and they're like, oh, you can't have Transformer cards in your deck. That's not allowed. Most of us, when we get together with our friends to play card games, we're fairly flexible about those kind of things. And you can set up ground rules ahead of time if you want. So I'm not sure how much controversy there really is. A lot of people decried this whole idea of Universes Beyond when it first came out as a mindless cash grab by the company. And, heaven forbid that a company makes some profit. It's all going to be to the good if they do make some profit, right? Because what they've done traditionally is they've grown the Magic teams, and they've added on more resources where they thought they could use them. So they've whereas before the rules team might have been one person, now they have an entire rules team, for templating, for editing, for design, for development. There's multiple people on multiple teams, and that's very rare for a card game. And now with the online arena and stuff like that, we've got entire, not just your traditional company stuff like sales and marketing divisions, but you've got digital branches too. And the more that they sell and the more that they profit, to a certain degree, some of those profits are going to be driven back into the game. And that means more care, more feeding of the game, more people on the teams, more attention given to it, more time in advance given to planning things out to try and keep the game fresh and exciting and innovative and around for us to keep playing. So I don't really mind them doing the Universes Beyond series. If it's not something that I'm particularly into for a particular set, I might not participate. And Wizards of the Coast has said that. They've said that not every product that we make is going to be for every single person. And sometimes that sounds like a cop-out, but for the Universes Beyond, it makes sense. For when it comes to Lord of the Rings in particular, maybe I should try and make an effort to make sure that I keep on the particular Lord of the Rings picture to keep on topic and on image. But this flavor matches, right? There's a direct lineage, sort of, from Lord of the Rings to Dungeons and Dragons to Magic the Gathering. When Richard Garfield was shopping around his idea for a game, his first idea wasn't taken. Peter Atkinson was the president and founder of Wizards of the Coast, and he said, I need something small and portable, because he was looking at, like games masters needing time to set up something new in between campaigns for a D&D night. He was making role-playing game supplements. That's what Wizards of the Coast was originally doing. And they eventually hit on this Magic the Gathering. Richard Garfield came up with it, brought it back to Peter Atkinson, says, I think I've got this thing that'll work for you. And Richard Garfield had already he had created a card game before, and I think he basically used elements from it. I think that was originally called The Five Colors. And when they decided that they hit upon this idea of a collectible trading card game, that's when they changed it. And originally it was going to be called Monoclash, and eventually it became Magic the Gathering. And so because Peter Atkinson was involved in the role-playing stuff, because he was a fan of that kind of thing, when TSR later fell into trouble as a company, Wizards of the Coast was able to buy TSR and therefore take over Dungeons and Dragons. And that must have been probably one of his biggest fan days ever. And it's worked out for Magic, too, because we've gone into, we've had an Adventures of the Forgotten Realms expansion set, and that was kind of fun to play around with. And the flavor worked, right? Because the fantasy setting of Magic the Gathering is a direct descendant of that D&D stuff. And that D&D stuff was influenced by the Lord of the Rings, which is much older. And so just a tiny bit of history for those of you who don't know. When Tolkien wrote Lord of the Rings, it took him something like 12 years to write the whole saga. He started with The Hobbit, then he wrote Lord of the Rings. It took him like 12 years to write. I think he finished in 49, so just at the end of World War II. He wanted it to be like kid-friendly, sort of like George Lucas wanted with Star Wars. He wanted to release it, I think, all as one big story, but the page count was so high. And there was a paper shortage during World War II. So the publisher, when they actually got around to publishing it in 1954 and 55, they split it up into 3 editions. And that's kind of how we got the trilogy, so to speak, of fantasy books, I think. But the races, the elves and the dwarves and the orcs, those all come from Lord of the Rings. So when D&D came around in 1974... they had dwarves, and they had elves, and they had orcs, and they had some names of creatures that were from the races created by Lord of the Rings. So the creator of D&D, one of the big creators, Gary Gygax, has sort of altered his phrasing over the years in terms of how much Lord of the Rings might have influenced him. And he started off, I think, by saying there was no direct impact. And there were some lawsuits that followed over the years. And he did modify his phrasing over the time. So I don't know how much influence there was. I don't know how much was direct or indirect. That's, sort of up for historical debate, and I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time diving into that history to try and figure it out for myself, because I wasn't in the room. But what we can say is that for a couple of decades, those races and that atmosphere, that milieu of Lord of the Rings, that had entered the cultural zeitgeist, and that had influenced the fantasy settings, especially in literature. And so when Dungeons and Dragons came out, it was definitely reflected. Lord of the Rings influence was reflected in Dungeons and Dragons product. And when they settled lawsuits, they did end up changing a couple of race names to make them slightly different in D&D from Lord of the Rings. So there was definitely some settlement agreement there in terms of how they were going to handle things. But I don't think for us, for our purposes, what we're concerned about when it comes to Magic the Gathering is the flavor, and does it match the setting. And whereas Transformers and Walking Dead might be considered kind of a stretch by different people, especially if they're not fans of them, Lord of the Rings is a really good flavor match, just like D&D was. I don't know how much more we want to say about that, except they've done really well. Wizards of the Coast has done really well in terms of the people that were involved behind the scenes in designing this set are fans of Lord of the Rings. And I don't know how many of them have read the books, but they've got all the major characters, right? They've got legendary locations. They've got famous battles depicted. We're going to have legendary stuff all around. We're going to have legendary matters. We're going to have Return of Historic. And I'll go over some of the mechanics as well for you. But I think the biggest thing that I want to say really is that they have put a lot of love and care into the creation of the set. And hopefully that pans out in terms of how the mechanics work and how the gameplay works. Hopefully it's just as much fun. But I want to say that they had enough time to develop this, that they got most of their facts straight, and they've got, how do I want to say, they've unleashed their artists to a pretty interesting way to adapt everything into as broad brushstrokes as they can. So it may not be for people that read the original books. You might find a couple of differences, just like there are differences in the movie adaptation. But you shouldn't let that interrupt your enjoyment of things. Just think of it like an Elseworlds type thing. Just like when you go to see one of the Marvel movies or DC movies, and you can tell they've taken a lot of inspiration from a particular storyline or graphic novel from the character, but there's some stuff that just isn't quite the same. Just remind yourself that it's not the same as the comic story, which is there and untouched for you to go pick up and reread and be untampered with anytime you want. But it's just an alternate version of the story that you can go enjoy. And so, yeah, this is going to be kind of fun, I think. It's going to be exciting for me just to be involved in the early access event. And I think the only other thing that I want to talk about tonight before I let you go is some of the mechanics. And let's see if I can get my browser to work. Here we go. I'm going to see if I can do this properly, and just instead of letting you stare at the Magic Arena screen, I'll just bring this over as we page through it real quick. Hang on. Everything froze for a second. So there we go. All right. So we've got from the magicwizards.com, we've got the ring. This is going to be an emblem that some of the cards can bring out. The ring tempts you. It'll create this emblem for the ring. You get to choose which creature gets equipped with the ring, and you get the first power. And it has 4 abilities overall. And the longer that it stays on and the more the ring tempts you, you get to add on the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th ability. And so by the time you get to the 4th, it's going to keep all of them on one creature, and it's going to be an extremely powerful kind of artifact, right, that has an effect on you. We won't get too much into that right now. There's Saruman the Necromancer, so there's going to be some cards that talk about you having the ring. You know, here's exile that token unless Sauron is your ring bringer. They're bringing a mass back, but instead of zombies, this is orcs. But there are ways, I mean, you're in Historic, right? So you can combine the mass orcs with mass zombies, and you can end up with orc zombie creatures. But you basically create an army and then add on the +1/+1 counters for all the amass cards that you play. So that's a returning mechanic. We get food tokens back, which is just fine. The hobbits are famous for their second lunches and stuff like that. We've already seen land cycling come back, right? So this is where, like this card for the Oliphant, you can get mountain cycling. You discard this particular card because maybe you get it early on and 6 mana is too much. And you just throw it into your graveyard and you get to pull out a mountain out of your deck and reshuffle your deck. And then we've got sagas, enchantment sagas. And it looks like we have more than one chapter on some of these. So that'll be kind of cool. And then we've got historic, which is artifacts, sagas, and anything with legendary on it. So historic's going to matter. Legendary's going to matter a lot in this particular one. And then they mentioned stun counters as well, which we're already familiar with. So I don't know how much of this is going to be considered new. Because if you've been playing Magic for a couple of years, you're kind of familiar with stun counters and historic and enchantment sagas, and we've already had land cycling in the latest March of the Machines, right? And if you've been playing, I mean, they haven't put a big emphasis on food tokens, but I mean, you can come across food tokens a lot in this game. And if you've gone to historic at all, you should come up against a mass before as well. So I don't know that there's much in the way that's new, except for this one ring emblem. And we'll see. Ooh, it shows you on the back. The ring tempts you. Ooh, okay, so here are the rules. The ring can tempt you even if you don't control the creature. The ring gains its abilities in order from top to bottom. Once it gains an ability, it has that for the rest of the game. Each time the ring tempts you, you must choose a creature if you control one. So you can switch it to a different creature if you want. And each player can only have one emblem named the ring and only one ring bearer at a time. So, yeah, I'm going to say, pun intended, it's going to be very tempting to play with this particular feature. So, all right, that's it. That's my announcement. T-Pulse Corner is going to be playing early access. I'm going to play as many decks as I can, put together as much stuff as I can, upload as fast as I can, and put out as much stuff as I can, all to your entertainment. And let me know in the comments what you think of the Universes Beyond series. You know, let me know if you want me to do a quick draft. Let me know if you want me to do YouTube Live. Let me know what you think of the controversy between Lord of the Rings and Dungeons and Dragons. You know, anything that you want to comment on that you've heard in this video, go ahead and let me know, and we'll start a conversation because I really like hearing from you guys. I like the interaction. So we're going to leave it there. Again, everybody like and subscribe if you haven't done that already. I don't think you can like multiple times. I think once you click like, then it's set. You can't do, one user can't do more than one like. But I always want more likes, so everybody make sure to like it at least once. All right, thanks everybody. This is Travis signing off from T-Pulse Corner, and hopefully you come back to watch this early access stuff. It should be fun. Thanks everybody. Have a good one.